We have a very strong relationship with Indonesia, next door to us, with Australia, and with all the other ASEAN countries, and then with China, with Japan and South Korea. Increasing, expanding relationship with India. So these are the main investors or main partners in different projects in Timor-Leste. We are not closing to any country or not overly dependent on any country. We have a good relationship with China, as we have good relationship with the United States, strong relationship with the European Union, very strong relationship with Portugal.
Welcome to the Dubai Talk Show. I'm your host, Loubo Siois. Today we have a spectacular guest. We have the President of Timor-Leste, José Ramos-Horta. Welcome to the show, Mr. President.
Thank you. It is a pleasure.
You have been visiting Dubai and the UAE quite frequently. What are the relations between those two countries?
I have to say I have the greatest respect, admiration for the leadership of Dubai, of the UAE, for Sheikh Mohammed, whom I know, I've met over the years. Very inspiring, the success of UAE from different fisheries fishermen villages, to a financial trading center, one of the most modern in the world. In only few generations, the leadership has been able to turn UAE into an oasis of tranquility, of peace, of human fraternity, into a global economic powerhouse, but also into a global peace-building, peace-making power. So I have followed all of this over the years very quietly. Before, way back 20 years ago when I was foreign minister, without even many in the government in UAE knew, from behind the scenes I was pushing my country to support UAE candidacies to some UN positions, and every time I was asked to support UAE for different initiatives at the UN, I always supported. So way back when I was foreign minister. And over the years I stopped over, visit. Then as president, elected in 2022, made effort in upgrading the relationship. So we have opened an embassy in Abu Dhabi. They paid an official visit. I have attended several international conferences in Abu Dhabi. So now the relationship is very strong. Hopefully in the near future, few months or few years to come, we will see some significant UAE investments in Timor-Leste.
Okay, that's amazing. For those that are not aware of Timor-Leste, Timor-Leste is a country of 1.3 million people. This is in Asia. It's very close between Indonesia and Australia, and it's one of the newest countries that have been independent in the early 2000s. So let's go back in the history of the country a little bit. You have been a colony of Portugal for many years, and later on you have had occupation from Indonesia. Tell us a little bit more about the background.
Yeah. The Portuguese first landed on the island in 1515. It doesn't mean obviously that the moment you land here, you begin to colonize. Of course, the first people who landed here was a bunch of missionaries, of traders, adventurers, and that's about it. So it didn't mean that Portugal automatically took possession of the island, because the island at the time was ruled by several independent kingdoms in an organized way, as organized kingdoms. So the Portuguese missionaries, sailors, adventurers, they arrived. They made contact with the local chiefs. the local authorities. They needed water, they needed food, shelter, some protection. And then they began many, many years later to do some trade. They would bring products from mainland Portugal, and they would take spices from Timor-Leste, particularly sandalwood, which we have one of the few countries in the world with native original sandalwood, and all other trade that they got in the region, because when the Portuguese first arrived, they were the first Europeans to reach Southeast Asia. So they went to Malacca, Indonesia, Malaysia. They were in Aceh. They were in Java. Then they were in eastern Indonesia, in so-called Flores. The Portuguese were the ones who gave the name to the islands, Flores, flowers. But always trade, because Portugal didn't have enough manpower. You know, back then, Portugal had like less than 1 million people. They were already in what is Brazil. They were already in West Africa, East Africa. So they were primarily concerned with trade. Then some years later, the Dutch came. Of course, the Dutch and the Portuguese start fighting for control of the trade. The Portuguese were pushed and lost all their presence in many parts of what today Indonesia, ended up only in what today Timor-Leste. So that is, in a nutshell, a tour d'horizon of Portuguese presence and Timor-Leste colonial history. The development of the territory is very slow. The only significant development the Portuguese did was already in the 18th century to introduce coffee. So the famous coffee that we have, one of the best in the world, was introduced by the Portuguese in the 1800s. They didn't even, the Portuguese didn't even reach the interior of the island. They were primarily in the northern coastal area, not even in the south coastal area. But they were smart. What they did, Portugal was ruled by monarchy. Timor-Leste, you can say, ruled by monarchies, the kingdoms. So they did alliance agreements. They recognized, respected the local chiefs in the island East and West Timor. The island as a whole is significant size. And only much later, already in the 19th century, that the Portuguese start trying to expand their presence into the interior. But even then, they're able to stay here only because the Lurais is like a Raja, is like a Sultan, agree with them. So there were agreements between the kingdoms in Timor-Leste with the king's monarchy in Portugal. So that's why they managed to stay here. And then finally, the 20th century came. Japan invaded Portuguese Timor at the time as well, and then followed by Indonesia invasion in 75. So that is the history.
Okay, so at the moment, what percentage of your population speaks the Portuguese language?
More than 80% speak the national language, Tetum, which is a Malay language. But the language Tetum borrow hundreds of words from Portuguese. But even Bahasa Indonesia from Indonesia or Bahasa Malay from Malaysia also have a lot of Portuguese words. Even though the Portuguese had very small presence in Indonesia, what today Indonesia, in Malaysia, there is a much more Portuguese influence in the language of Bahasa Indonesia, Bahasa Malay, than Dutch or English. And that's precisely because Portugal was a very active trading. And it's through trade that the language is spread. It is not through military conquest. English is spread because of the incredible economic trade power of United Kingdom of England. So, and the Tetum language, ours, has much more Portuguese words than Bahasa Indonesia. So we have a Tetum, spoken by more than 80%. Second language is Bahasa Indonesia, not Portuguese. Third language, yes, is Portuguese. More than 30% now speak Portuguese. But also English. Increasingly, English is used in Timor-Leste. In our constitution stipulates four languages. Two as official languages, Tetum and the Portuguese, and two as working languages, Bahasa Indonesia and the English. Gradually over the years, English will spread, and young Timorese, children, teenagers, they learn languages very easily. Timorese can speak 3, 4, 5, 6 languages, no difficulties. So this country is very polyglot.
And I thought from my side that I was kind of special by speaking 4 or 5 languages, but now I see your people, they're also quite unique in this aspect.
Yes,
What
yes.
about your personal background and your parents? Did they come from Portugal? What's their story, your story?
Well, grandfather came from Portugal in the 1930s and the 30s because they were against the then conservative fascist regime of Salazar. So they were arrested, deported to Timor-Leste. Our mother is Timorese, already passed away. She was here during the Japanese invasion. She survived the Japanese occupation. Later in 75, she was here. My brothers, sisters were here, survived the Indonesian occupation. One sister, two brothers died here. Another brother died from illness, not from the war itself. So we all born here, all grew up here. Never been to any other country before independence. We're always here in Timor-Leste. Our father died here, mother died here, brothers and sisters, everyone who died here in Timor-Leste.
Okay, I understand. And having the name José, I think you might be one of the top 3 most famous people with this name José, along with José Mourinho, perhaps.
Common and very boring. Almost half of the world is Jose. Half of Latin America is Joseph. When parents don't have much imagination, they give you the name Jose. So unfortunately, I end up with a very common name, particularly in Portuguese. In English, is Joseph. In Spanish, even sound uglier, Jose, which I don't like very much when people mispronounce, because some American and Australians, they are not very familiar with languages. My name, sometimes they even spell H-O-S-E and pronounce Jose. In the United States, very common, someone who is Jose, they call Jose. That is, and we were 12 brothers and sisters.
That's a very, very big family, 12 people.
Yes. Now only
Okay,
6 alive.
let's see what economic challenges are you currently facing? How is your local economy growing? The last few years you have established an airline, so potentially you would be expanding into the tourism sector. Maybe you're a very, how can I say, the very rural version of what Bali was many, many, many years ago, and you have amazing nature as well. People coming for surfing, perhaps some digital nomads growing over the years.
Right now, the economy is based primarily on agricultural subsistence, farming at subsistence level. 70% of the people live off agriculture. but an agriculture that is not highly productive. When someone in Timor-Leste say he is a farmer, it means he is poor. Some people depend on coffee, but even the coffee farmers are mostly small farmers, and their annual income from coffee proceeds also very modest. We have, of course, been able to develop the country in terms of building infrastructures only in the last 20 years. Before independence, the country was even poorer and much more isolated than it is today. We have invested a lot in education. I just give some very basic examples. In 2002, year one of our independence, we had only 20 Timorese medical doctors. Today we have 1,400, 23 years later. In 2002, independence, year one of our independence, we had one PhD from Indonesia. He graduated from Indonesia. Today we have 200 plus, obtained in some of the best universities in Asia and around the world. We have several thousand with a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. At independence, we had one university. Today, we have 18 universities. Universities that are accredited, or evaluated by an international commission of evaluators that come every 2 years. In 2002, we had electricity only in the capital, and intermittent, not stable, not permanent. Now electricity reached 98% of the territory. Life expectancy in 2002, a Timorese would live only less than 60 years. Today it is up to 70, 71. So we have made progress. We have a modest income, not big, from oil and gas. Maybe in the next 5 years, we'll have much more revenues from gas and some oil. Negotiations are continuing with some major developers to start the development of a big gas field called Greater Sunrise, with a pipeline coming to Timor-Leste. In addition, there are 2 other fields, they are smaller, oil and gas, that could start earlier. Maybe in 2-3 years we will have revenues from these 2 fields. In addition, we have millions of cubic feet of marble, all kinds of marble. We have a very precious mineral called manganese, which is very important for industry. Manganese is you can extract very easily on the floor of on the ground itself, not underground, on the ground level, and there's plenty around Timor-Leste. We have a very good limestone for cement, and we have a great fisheries resources. We have one of the richest biodiversity in the world. Actually, an international NGO of a specialist called Conservation International say Timor-Leste has the richest biodiversity in the world. We have something like 580 coral species, 3,000 species of fish. Every year, starting next month, we have dozens of whales sailing to Timor-Leste and feeding here for weeks, for months. And that is becoming a major tourist attraction. So hopefully, in partnership with UAE, UAE will invest here in some hotels that we need for our ASEAN membership, because we are joining ASEAN. According to the alphabetic order, Timor-Leste would host in 2029 the ASEAN Summit. So we need minimum 5 hotels at 5-star level. And the UAE could invest in those 5 hotels, owned by UAE, managed by UAE. We have already now 3 hotels that are high standards. There are a few more, but 3 we can say 4 or 5-star level. One at least, yes, 5-star. A second one, very good, I would say probably 4-star. Tower hotel going up, could be ready by next year, 5-star. And plus, right now, studies are underway and the contracts awarded to expand our international airport. So with international airport, we will have more tourists coming and more air connectivity, not only for tourism, but for investors, for international conferences to take place here. And very important, we have eliminated malaria in Timor-Leste. We have no malaria here. And other tropical diseases have been eliminated. We are building a brand new hospital, and we are going to rehabilitate all other regional hospitals in the next 2-3 years.
It seems very, very well structured and very good vision to have in working into all these things. When it comes to the natural energy resources, oil and gas, are you inclined to work with specific countries? Are you more towards China or to the Arabic countries or to the US? How do you structure this energy sector?
Right now, we have partners that have been working with us already, and that is Australia, Woodside, Osaka Gas, and Korea Gas, and other smaller oil companies, Timorese, together with their partners from Australia and UK. However, we are open to, and the Chinese are very interested, so we are open to Chinese energy companies that are very keen to invest here. We have had here a delegation from Kuwait, a private fund from Kuwait, family fund, very interested in investing billions of dollars, if necessary, in the energy sector here, particularly in the development of our gas field called Greater Sunrise.
Okay, that's very interesting. For infrastructure infrastructure development, are you again focusing mostly with Chinese contractors and companies because they have very good experience, and regionally they're not very far from you as well, and traditionally you have been having good balance and communication with China as well?
We have a very strong relationship with Indonesia, next door to us, with Australia, and with all the other ASEAN countries, and then with China, with Japan and South Korea. Expanding relationship with India. So these are the main investors or main partners in different projects in Timor-Leste. We are not closing to any country or not overly dependent on any country. We have a good relationship with China, as we have good relationship with the United States, strong relationship with the European Union, very strong relationship with Portugal, UK, France, Germany, Canada, Brazil, Cuba. So we are very much a very open country without prejudices, without sometimes irrational suspicion of any country. We have a traditionally very strong relationship with the United States, and this is continuing, and we are very pleased with that. But at the same time, a strong relationship with China and with India, increasing. Japan is becoming probably biggest investor outside oil and gas field. A giant Japanese shipbuilder is going to set up a major shipbuilding project here in Timor-Leste. Preparations already started, agreement signed. By the end of next year, the shipyard should be ready. And by 2028, the first ship will sail out into the sea. That will make probably Japan the biggest investor in Timor-Leste. In terms of roads and bridges, we always put out to international bidding. We put out international bidding. Different companies bid from Europe to Australia, Indonesia, China. So Chinese companies, construction companies have been here. They are here. For instance, the major, biggest contract we have awarded was a few years ago for a modern port. This was a PPP, public-private partnership, funded equally by us, Timor-Leste, with World Bank and Bolloré. Bolloré is the giant French company. The winner for the contract was to build the port itself was a big Chinese company called China Harbor. But it was not a Chinese grant. It was our investment, a PPP. The contract was awarded to a Chinese company, as several other contracts awarded to Chinese companies based on secret bidding, closed envelope, following strict international standards of the bidding process.
That's amazing. How about citizenship by investment program? Usually it's quite common smaller countries to offer that kind of programs to attract individual investors of the economy with some minimum fixed deposits or investments. Are you considering to launch something like that?
Not yet. We are not. We are familiar with it. Many countries do that, but we are not doing that. We do not discriminate on any nationality, any passport. Mostly Timor-Leste is visa on arrival or no visa at all required. We also have our passport enabled Timorese passport holder to travel to more than 80 countries, either no visa required or visa on arrival.
Okay, that's excellent, Mr. President. Amazing conversation. If you would like to make any other closing statement regarding our conversation today, and hopefully one day I will come and visit you in Timor-Leste.
Thank you. You're always welcome. Anyone from UAE, always welcome to Timor-Leste, or from any of the Gulf countries. Always welcome. Come for holidays, for a change, or come to look for investments, trade, whatever, always welcome. Thank you.